Hello, everyone. The complex situation here at Samson University regarding the impact of the fiscal outlook on the existence of identity centers is certainly one that deserves serious consideration. Unfortunately, no matter what choice is made, many students and staff members will be affected due to the increased racial diversity present both on and off campus. After reviewing literature and examining trends in higher education, best practices, and student development theory, as the Vice President of Student Affairs here at SU, I recommend to President Chesson that the 7 individual identity centers are maintained as separate offices, rather than combining them to create one large multicultural center. Reasoning behind this recommendation includes the fact that the campus will most likely continue to grow in terms of racial and ethnic diversity, thus adding to the number of students who will benefit most from these identity centers. The notion that the individual identity centers are best able to advocate for certain student population needs, and the importance of creating safe spaces for all students to feel included and have conversations imperative to their growth and development. In order to mitigate the negative effects of the tough financial situation on the identity center's existence, partnerships between the centers and between the centers and other departments on campus must be built, and the directors of centers should be guided towards becoming entrepreneurs in their work. The recommendation to maintain separate identity centers is grounded in a few reasons. First and foremost, as SU and the local community has already experienced significant growth in racial diversity, similar growth can be expected in the next 15 years. White students may no longer be the majority at some institutions, including SU, and we must take action today for these future demographic changes. Not only does this increase in racial and ethnic diversity mean that SU will have more students accessing these identity centers from a simple use perspective, but it means that SU will have to make sure it is meeting the needs of more diverse students. To meet needs, we must first recognize needs, and one of the functions of separate identity centers is to represent and advocate for certain student populations' needs. While one large multicultural center might be able to advocate for a few general needs, it would be much more difficult for the staff members to be deeply in touch with each population's specific needs and advocate for them all. Thus, separate identity centers are necessary as the diversity of SU's population continues to grow, and by maintaining them as separate offices, we are setting ourselves up to better meet the needs of the future students of SU. Additionally, separate identity centers are needed to honor and support the unique needs of individual identities of students. While here at SU we pride ourselves on creating an inclusive learning community for all students, there is no doubt that some identity groups still experience at least microaggressions on our campus, if not greater acts of oppression and discrimination. Identity centers are critical spaces for support as students come together to safely discuss their experiences with others who can relate on a deep level. Many social identity development theories emphasize the importance of creating relationships and building coalitions with individuals who identify similarly, such as Daugelli's model of lesbian, gay, and bisexual development, Kim's Asian American identity development model, and Cross and Fagan-Smith's model of Black identity development. Even if relationships are not emphasized for a certain development status or stage, exploration of culture or elements of that identity is central to all social identity development models, and individual identity centers are best able to create the safe environment where this exploration can occur. Similar to the need of advocating for specific needs of student populations, one large multicultural center may not provide a safe space where this exploration can be as deep as it needs to be for meaningful growth and development, and it may not provide the context for these conversations on specific cultures due to its more generalized focus on multiculturalism and inclusion. It is also important to consider the effects identity centers have on growth that occurs outside of the social identity models. Because separate identity centers are in tune to specific student populations' needs, characteristics, and cultures, students may be more likely to experience successful and meaningful growth in other areas, like leadership development, in these unique spaces. While I strongly urge President Chesson to avoid creating one large multicultural center, I understand that there are serious financial implications of maintaining the 7 separate identity centers. Consequently, I have developed 3 suggestions to mitigate the impacts of my recommendation. The first is to emphasize the building and strengthening of partnerships both between the centers and between the centers and other departments on campus. The center's directors should meet together regularly to discuss their successes, challenges, and programs. During this time, they should include conversations on how they could work together to meet learning outcomes and student needs, with the possibilities including joint programming and sharing of resources. By collaborating on these fronts, the centers might be able to cut down on costs and alleviate some of the financial burden created by maintaining separate offices. In regards to inter-campus partnerships, the center's directors should be brainstorming ways they might work with other offices on campus to minimize repetition of resources and to create more meaningful programs. Possibilities include working with advisors, the writing center already established on campus, and even strictly academic offices. Some curricular departments may deeply appreciate partnering with the identity centers, such as the ethnic studies and women's studies departments. Collaboration among the identity centers and across campus also serves the dual purpose of supporting students who identify as multiracial or have multiple minoritized identities. Identities do not exist in a vacuum, and the concepts of intersectionality and simultaneity must be recognized in the work that individual identity centers do. By working together and establishing partnerships, these centers will be better able to serve the Black transgender student or the lesbian disabled student, for example. The second suggestion is to create opportunities for professional development for the center's directors that emphasize entrepreneurial leadership in addition to other competencies. As economic times continue to present challenges for institutions, all student affairs officers should be able to think creatively about their financial data and their associated programs. This is not to say that I support the idea of these identity centers bringing in revenue, but it is to say and convey that the innovation and creativity are necessary in these difficult financial times, and I strongly believe that SU should support all of its staff members in developing skills in these areas. Finally, I urge President Chesson and all other senior officers at SU to consider the mission and vision of the institution as they make this decision. In these stressful financial times, identity centers are often considered to be a waste of resources and are the last offices on campus to receive extra funding or fiscal consideration. However, these centers are seen as symbols of an institution's dedication to diversity and inclusion for all students. And as Lori Patton states, they should be seen as facilities that bolster and breathe life into the academic mission rather than compete with it. Therefore, SU's administrators should make their decision in the context of the mission of SU and its strategic plan, and should think about the value the identity centers bring to the institution's outcomes and goals. Thank you.